Welcome back. It's time to introduce today's guest. I've been in awe of today's guest for some time. Not only is she an author of adult fiction, but her work in the Australian film industry and television industry for over 30 years is legendary. Her novels, The Island House, The Dressmaker and The Innocent, continue to enjoy glowing reviews and captivate readers around the world. Posie has created and produced some of this country's multi-award-winning iconic dramas such as McLeod's Daughters, Sons and Daughters and Rafferty's Rules. One of her most successful partnerings with Helena Harris in 1998 gave birth to the hit children's program High Five. Her other works for children include Ellie and Jules, The Miraculous Mellops, Mirror Mirror and the Nickelodeon movie Doom Runners. Posie has worked with the embodiment of Australia itself, Jack Thompson, English actor, singer and composer Tim Curry, and Logie award-winning actress Sonia Todd, in addition to many of this country's familiar TV faces. She's currently living in Tasmania with her creative partner Andrew Blaxland. Her accolades go on and on and on. When I noticed Posie had started following the Author Shelf's Facebook page, apart from feeling extremely excited, I had to ask her on the show. I'm very honoured to have Posie Graeme Evans as my guest for the first birthday edition of the Author Shelf. Posie, welcome to the show.
Blimey. It's like my life just flashed in front of my eyes. Sons and daughters.
As you know, we've spoken off air. I researched you and I had to whip out everything there. I couldn't find any skeletons though, so beware listeners, you never know what might crop up in the next hour. All right, Posie, I always begin. Firstly, I wanted to say congratulations on a hugely successful career. You truly are a pioneer for women, not only who write for TV, but for those who write full stop. Now, Posie, I always begin by asking my guests what is their story. So please tell us, what is the Posie Graeme Evans story?
Okay, so we'll just snap to the chase, will we? Okay.
Yes, we will. Come on.
Yes, log it. Okay, well, I'm a hybrid. Both my parents were Australian, but I was actually born in England, and I went to 14 schools all around the world. And I don't know, but I think that I hated that much change. Most kids do. But in the end, when I sort of fell into television, which I did, it just, everything came together with a shuddering crunch. And the first time, really true, the first time I walked into a big studio and it was working, God, I felt like I'd come home. That's the truth. So the story of my life is lived in lots of places, married twice, always obsessed by writing, always really, writing being storytelling, I think has been the core of my life. My mother was a novelist, so what you know as a child feels normal. So I think because I lived with a writer, I sort of became a writer. My brother's a writer too. It's very strong. And I just loved that world that combined pictures and music and storytelling. And I still love it. Though I ran away after McLeod's Daughters finished shooting in 2008. We had a brief but rather abortive. This is Andrew Blaxland and me, and Millennium Pictures, our production company, had a joint venture with a very well-known, huge production company, which was very flattering to be asked. But after about 18 months, I realised I was pretty much burnt out because I'd been working for so long. And, I've been offered, we bought this place in Tasmania where we are now. We've been going backwards and forwards. And really, one day, I just didn't want to go back. I just didn't want to go back. And so, since 2009, we've been living here pretty much full time, though we still spend a fair bit of time in Sydney. I'm a writer now, and I'm dabbling again in TV, but it came to me. It's not something I sought, and it's a pretty good life right now, and I'm touching wood.
And you said wow to me. Now I say wow to you. That sounds wonderful. Oh, yeah, extraordinary life. Okay, all right. You mentioned your mother was a novelist. Now your father, he was in the RA. He was an RAF pilot.
Yeah, look, he was. He was a Tasmanian. That's the Tasmanian connection. And like so many men of his generation, he was 21 years old when he ran away to the last huge war, and he became a fighter pilot in England, shot down, prisoner of war, the whole catastrophe. And my brother and I were born sort of in the 50s, 10 years after the war in Britain. And, we sort of traipsed around in Frank's wake, Frank being my dad. And they had a hell of a life. My God, they never had much money, but they had a hell of a lot of style. They had the last of the British Empire to play with. You know, my father's last posting was Cyprus when it was all blowing up. It was a war zone, but we lived there, had an idyllic year or so before it all went crazy. And it was heaven on a stick. You know, my mother was famous, fairly outgoing person, I'd say, describe her. You know, famous for being able to play tennis with a gin in one hand. She really was. Now, she was the real deal. She, in London, just before the war, when she was 23, her first book was published. And she had 3 books published in 3 years, published by Hutchison. 2 out of the 3 were optioned by Hollywood studios for movies.
Wow.
Get this, 23 to 26, right? And then the war happened. So the movies never got made. And after the war, things were so different. She wrote journalism. She wrote stuff for kids. She wrote a couple more books. They were biographies of particular people. And then, when she was in her 70s, she won the Alan Marshall Award for the best unpublished novel in Australia.
Wow.
Yeah. That book never got published because she was in her 70s and publishers thought she was too old. It then got published when she was 87.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, that's the story. And, you know, the thing is, what I think is it ain't over till it's over. And you live life until you've wrung the last drop out of it. And that was her example to me. And I think the wonderful thing is, you know, it's quite tough being a writer because it's quite a solitary thing and not everyone has a talent for solitude. I found I had it. I was quite surprised. But anyway, I think writers get better as they get older because you've lived more.
Yes, exactly. Okay, all right. I was going to ask, do you think that your parents helped shape your career? But yes, I think they did. Is a simple answer to that.
They did.
Yes.
Oh no, I think they did. I look at my face often. I mean, people will say this to you. It's going to happen, George. You've got to remember this. You turn into your mother. You do. I can't fight the gravitational force. It's there.
All right. Now tell me, did you enjoy your school years? Where did you spend
No.
most of your... Okay. Right.
Not at all.
Throw the script out the window. Fine. Okay.
No,
You
I
didn't.
didn't. I did not. I
You
was always
didn't.
the outsider. And, you know, in fact, I did go to some schools that I enjoyed more than others, for sure. I mean, I actually went to a great school in Cyprus when I got there first. But, you know, I went to 2 convents and they were both horrible. And boarding, I felt like I was going to prison when I was being sent to boarding school. I understand why it all happened because, you know, when you travel around a lot, what are you going to do with a kid's schooling? It's pretty hard.
Yes.
But I'll tell you what it did for me. To be an outsider is perfect training. To be a storyteller, I wish it wasn't so, but it's true. And I was one of those bookish children who kind of ran away to the library because there was a real library in those days, and of course they're all changing so much. And I've always adored books. And they were refuges and friends and all that. Now, that's an eternal story. And I'm here to testify to the power of it, actually. I'm grateful now. It took me a long time to feel like that, but I am grateful now that even though it was pretty tough, it gave me things I don't think I would have had otherwise. But I hated it, really. Hated school.
Okay. All right. Well, tell us, why did you want to be a writer?
Oh, it chose me. I don't think it's a matter of want. You know, a dancer dances and a singer sings and a writer writes. I mean, that's a quotation of someone's and I don't know what it is, but I think it's the truth. I think that's what you do. I think the things that choose you are the things you're meant to do. And that's me being very fatalistic and it sounds superstitious. But, yeah, I think that's what it is. I didn't want to be a writer. There wasn't any escape. It's the truth. It's really the only way I can describe it.
All right. Well, can you tell me this one? Where do you get your story ideas?
They're just there.
Lucky thing.
No, they brew, you know. I mean, the thing is, when something comes from nothing, which it does, this happens so much in television, conjuring worlds out of nothing, there will be a seed, and the seed will come from anywhere, and it might be something you hear or something you see or someone's face, you know, half seen in shadow. Or I think that, look, Georgie, I'm a total voyeur. I've been known to fall off chairs in restaurants because I'm listening so avidly to the people at the table next door.
I just got the best picture in my head, Posie.
I've done it. Where to go? And so, you know, it's not, I don't think there are any rules. I think there are techniques, by the way. I do think that it's like a pianist must practice or a singer must practice or, you know, anybody who's going to become proficient at a if they've been given the seeds of something, you rarely spring upon the world as a genius fully formed. You've actually got to learn the rules of the game. You know, it is said that Picasso was a very great draftsman before he threw all those rules away, and became so abstract. And I think the same of writing. To a degree, you've just got to do it. And you've got to do it every day, or as close to every day as you can make that happen. But there's also other ways, that we can talk about that. I'm of the school that means that you must practice. You must just do it.
Yes, okay, all right. The Innocent, The Exiled and The Beloved, they're a trilogy. Please tell our listeners series.
Okay, all right. Well, I was a very lucky person. When I was 18, I went to Flinders University in South Australia, which was quite a small university at that time. And there was a man there called Ralph Elliott who was the Dean of English and the Professor of English. And he was two things. He was a wonderful teacher. He was hilarious. He was very funny. He was very learned. And I didn't understand how learned he was until much later, I think, in my life. But he had two great passions. One of them was Norse literature, ancient Norse literature, and the other one, the sagas, for instance, and the other one was medieval literature. And I used to sit in those lectures and listen to him, and it just went deep into my soul, and that is what gave me those three books. It took me 20 years. I mean, I honestly think those first three books were at the back of my head for 20 years, and I love history, you see, which is deeply unfashionable, but I actually think historical fiction, which is what those first three books are, is an attempt to say, if it says anything, that we are them, they are us. They wear different clothes, they eat different food, but the drives remain the same, and they express, human beings express their lives in ways that are recognisable at whatever period of history. And those three novels, published 2002, 2003, and 2005 in Australia, and overseas pretty much the same. So before the great kind of weltering sort of outpouring of historical fiction, which is now much greater extent, the 15th century, high 15th century, high Middle Ages in England, just before the Tudors, just spoke to me. I mean, so lawless, so bloody. The frocks, the clothes, they were brilliant, There were extreme personalities around. So I'd read and read and read and read and read. I travelled and travelled and travelled and gone to so many of the places just out of interest. And then one day I sat down and swear to God, it was like, valves that opened up at the end of my fingers. And this stuff poured out, just poured out. And, I wrote, in essence, well, the first one took me longer to write, but then I wrote those three books while I was producing McLeod's, and then while I was director of drama at 9. I just did. I wrote once a week, and they just fell onto the page. It's bizarre, but true.
I've read actually in researching you that you said that the words just flowed out of your fingertips. I just love that. That's just I love that. All right, my next question for you is, now another thing I've heard you say is that an imaginative world is a great gift to be given. Now, you said that during a Peter Thompson interview, I believe it was.
Oh, Lord, that was lovely. Yeah, I was asked to do this thing, a talking heads thing. It's a while. It was a while ago. It was the last year we were shooting in McLeod's, and it was a very enjoyable experience. But I think that, look, it's Bruce Springsteen, one of the greatest songwriters of all time, who said, in this case, a man's life is much the same. And I think by that he meant that inside we all have imaginative lives. Sometimes we're more conscious of them than others. But our thoughts conjure stuff, which is the sum of our life. We think, and that is what drives us at a sort of a spiritual level, below the mental level. This is the stuff that comes out of the subconscious. This is the story well. But, you take all this stuff in and it dives down deep, and then when you need it, it comes back up and gives you a gift. And an imaginative life, you must find the thing in you. I think it's a task for us all, because I think it's a guarantee of making people happier with themselves and possibly a little more content, which is difficult in a world such as ours. If you can find the grain in you that leads to your form of imagination, your form of creativity, because everybody's got it. They just sometimes have been told all their lives they're not creative or the circumstances haven't been right. The other thing I think is seek the teacher who can, turn the key in the lock. And that's who Ralph Elliott was for me. He's lasted me from that time to this. The Island House was a book about the discovery of a Viking longship grave set in Scotland. That came out of him chanting in bloody Norse, the Outsider or whatever it was. I was enchanted, and the enchantment lasted. So that man walked into my life, and I was one of his many, many, many students. But he unlocked that thing which was bubbling that I wasn't even conscious of. Mm. True. And he was eloquent. The other thing is I'm enchanted by words. I swim in them, I think. Mm. And he was too. And I got the idea that it was perfectly all right to be like that.
Absolutely.
That's glorious.
Wonderful. All right. Now, you mentioned writing chose you.
Mm.
What about television?
Yeah, well, I think it did as well. It's new. I mean, I couldn't. In fact, my first, it's so ironic. I'm sort of back working with people in New Zealand at the moment. And my first job in television was in New Zealand through a bizarre set of circumstances. And it was just a job advertised in the paper. I applied and I got it. And I did talk my way in. I happened to have, when I was at university, one of the other things that I'd studied that I just adored was fine arts, where you'd sit there and these wonderful pictures from all over the world would sort of flash up enormous images in front of you. So images, words, and again, an inspirational lecturer. And anyway, so I managed to talk my way into a job working for TVNZ as a props buyer on a serial. And I used the fine arts, which was, I think, scandalous, really. So when you were buying things to go in the kitchen of the so-and-so house on a... Very funny. But it felt right. You see, it's a great combination, television. Well, television drama. I mean, I like all forms of television making. And I was lucky enough in my early career to get experience of a bunch of things, like news, current affairs, sport, God, all sorts of things. But I kept coming back to drama because drama is, well, I think it's one of the last great manufacturing processes, because each bit of a drama, if it's television or feature film or even games these days, is handmade. Someone has to make up the stories. The stories then have to be translated into a script. The script then, gets translated by the director. The director's pictures get taken into the edit room, cut up. You sit there, you wrangle about what's going to go and what's going to stay. Then there's music and sound effects added. And that means that each layer of the process is created by a crafts person who's very good at what they do. And when it all comes together, it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And it's very satisfying. And it's the other wonderful thing about television is you see your work. It gets made and it gets put in front of an audience. Feature film makers, I admire them enormously, because sometimes they'll labour away for years and years and years, and their beloved film gets, especially in Australia, because we have, a bit of a crisis in the feature film industry here. It gets thrown away in winter, 2 weeks up on a screen, and it's gone. And it does have some afterlife if they're lucky and gets sold around the world. But it's why, in fact, we're living in such a golden age now of television, so many people migrating out of feature film into television and using all those enhanced skills that crafting feature films gives you to give us the extraordinary series that are coming out of America, like Game of Thrones. I'm an avid fan of Game of Thrones. That's wonderful. House of Cards and all of that stuff. And, I love the complexity of it. I love the difficulty of it. Running a production is quite hard because you've got 140 people and you've got to weld them together and keep them together and convince them that they can do it, or, hold them together if they don't want to do it, or whatever the hell. You suffer through the process all the way to the end. There's something, and people see it. They write to you about it. It's amazing.
Wow. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Georgie Donaghy, and you're listening to The Author's Shelf. My guest today is Posie Graeme Evans.
It'll take some time to find your heart and come back home.
Now, for many around the world, that theme brings back fond memories of a show that not only captured the hearts of the viewers across the nation, but also the world. How did McLeod's Daughters come about?
Oh, my Lord. Can I just say, Georgie, by the way, it's still all around the world.
Yes, I know.
It's unbelievable. It's still on in places like Germany. I think it's just finished in. I mean, look, it's just. It's my people. It would be the most regular request I get. Can I please make more? And I have run out of the number of times that I've said, you know, polite ways to say, actually, I prefer to leave it, while we're ahead. I don't want to make more. Sorry for all of you who made. I mean, oh God, I gave too much of my life to that show. I loved it. Let's be honest, and I'm grateful for everything it's brought into my life, and it was amazing. And it's just one of those freaky things. And lightning most often doesn't strike twice. So it began with a photograph. There was a photograph in the bulletin I saw. This is true. I have said this before, but it's really true. There were a bunch of girls hanging over a 5-bar gate, and the big hats, the big blue sky, the big white grins, and the article. And I for the life of me, I know I've got it somewhere, and I couldn't find it, but it influenced me because it was talking about young women working cattle in the Northern Territory, and how much better at it they were than boys, and they rode horses in this particular case because they were much gentler. And boys on bikes tended to rev the animals up and get them spooked and, all the rest. And girls were kind of just had better innate animal handling skills. And, I think that sort of, especially the image, sat at the back of my head. And ultimately, I pitched it to Nine, and they were very nervous about it because, we did make the pilot telemovie with Jack Thompson. And it was the highest rating Australian telemovie of all time, and they still wouldn't do it. And I'm sure you've heard this, but it's really true because they were very nervous. This was, that went to air Mother's Day 96 or something. God, how long ago is this? And anyway, so rest is history. Stuffed around. Finally, they said yes in the year 2000 after the Olympics and after that extraordinary opening ceremony, and I had to repitch it again. And I think because they'd seen people on horseback, boys and girls, they kind of went, oh, and then finally it rolled, and then, 8 years, 224 episodes.
Yes, wow.
Yes, and I didn't know. I mean, people said to me, you're going to shoot it on location, and I would say, yeah. And the reason we shot it on location is because we didn't have the money to build the set. And they go, you can't shoot a series, not a whole series, on location. I go, yes, you can. And I sort of crawl away and go, oh, God, what do we do? We didn't know if we could. I thought we could. But the first series was just terrifying. It was terrifying because it was so big. I wanted everything in that bloody series, everything I could lay my hands on. And in fact, it's amazing. I'm standing in my husband's office talking to you, and I've just found a picture of the night that we won the Logies. I'm looking at them all.
Wow.
God, blimey. Hilarious. I'll put it back. Anyway.
Now, I understand that you not only committed your heart and soul, but financially you put yourself on the line too.
Sure.
What convinced you how to win up?
Wow. Look, I just knew it. It was one of those things. I just, and it's happened to me several times in my life. High Five was another one. Well, I think Helena and I both knew from the beginning that High Five. Well, I was actually, I will say she had a surer instinct about High Five because she'd done Bananas in Pyjamas probably than I did. But I kind of knew it was going to work, and it really did. McLeod's, I never had any doubt at all because I thought, dear God, so much of what gets served up in drama terms is dark. It still is. Very, very dark. And the thing about McLeod was there was an innocence and a sweetness to it. It was escapist. It was romantic, and I'm a romantic. And there is so little on television that is anything like that. And it was funny, and it just automatically was feminist. And I think that worried the boys at the network because they were all thinking I was going to do a feminist track. Well, it wasn't. They just did it. What was great about the girls in McLeod? They looked fabulous, but they could fix tracks. And, I happened to think that that's normal. So we got a story out of that. And I just, in my heart, I thought it would work. And then it worked all around the world. And one of the reasons that it worked all around the world, I think, is because it was authentic. It had a real heart, and people responded to that. And by the way, I will say this, and I may be proved wrong, but the thing that I'm now working on, this new series, because I got an idea about a year ago, and we're now developing it in New Zealand, I've got the same feeling about it. It's not remotely like McLeod's. It's still big pictures. This is very fashion and music driven, but it's got a warm heart.
Okay.
And I just had the same feeling. I think it might work, and it might not. I mean, you can't tell But that's what I think at the moment.
If you've got the feeling, you've got a proven track record there. So I think it's a good feeling. Now, we talked that it's still going everywhere. It's been distributed in over 200 countries. I mean, that's amazing.
Insane, isn't it?
Is it
insane.
hard? Is it hard to contemplate that many viewers tuning in to watch something you created?
I can't. It's impossible. It's impossible. I've had, the lovely, lovely things that you hear about it being shown in, unlikely places like the Faroe Islands. Guy, I've got to tell you this. Okay, so I was doing an interview once, and the guy who was recording the sound ran up to me afterwards and said, "You've got to hear about Lapland." And I'm going, "Yeah, Lapland." And he'd gone on a dog trek, right? 14 days across the tundra. He thought none of them spoke English, but it seems like they were just testing him to see if he could deal with it. And at the end, the guy shook him by the hand and he said, "Where are you from?" The Lappish guy shook him by the hand, and the sound recorder said, "Australian." The Lappish guy said, "The clouds." Lapland.
Oh, no.
And Israel in the middle of a war. I mean, it's just quite
Wow.
astonishing. Oh, anyway. No, it gives me a big kick. It still does. Of course it does.
So yeah, you have to pinch yourself then?
Yeah? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I
Nothing
think
to
so.
lose.
Do you have, I'm sure you've got lots of special memories from the time that you spent on McLeod's. Do you have just one that you can share with us?
Oh, yes, I absolutely do. Right, okay. So we flogged ourselves, right? We started shooting in something like February, March that year, boiling hot in Gawler, and we got all the way through to August, and we were about to go to air, and there was this massive press launch. These were the days when the money was being broomed up in the corridors at the television stations, not the case so much now. But so journalists were flown in from all over the country, and there was this huge thing in the homestead of McLeod. But this was the most wonderful thing of all. So we'd all rehearsed our speeches, and we all ready to do it, and everybody was there, and I was standing there in my Dryser Bone, which I wore on location.
Right.
And over the hill came a mob of cattle, and behind it were our cast on horseback driving the cattle towards us in a cloud of dust.
Wow.
And I can see it now. And it was just, it hit me like a hammer that it was real. Because we'd been working so hard. And, I'd lived in hope for so long. And it was going to happen. That night it was going to go to air. And it did go to air. And it burnt the ratings down. It was that night we were all at the homestead in Gawler, out where McLeod's was shot. And it was a family house, that house. And that night it was full of people, and light was sort of blazing outside. And we went to the production office in Gawler, which is about 8 minutes away, to actually watch it go to air. And the place was deathly quiet. There wasn't one person on the street, except that the local paper, the Bunyip, different breed, started publishing in the 1850s. The Bunyip had a billboard, little poster outside the newsagent saying, "It starts tonight."
Wow.
And, it was wonderful. It was just a wonderful feeling. And it was particularly wonderful because it had taken so long and it had been really hard. So that when it finally did it, and it really worked, the hard work didn't stop. The fear and the ratings every week, all the rest of it don't go away. But it changed me. It really changed me. It changed me. It convinced me. Okay, in my case, I'll say it, and I think everybody needs a moment like this in your life, and it is. You can do it. If you really want it, you can do it. Now, I think it'd be a bit hard for me to become a gymnast now, but I don't know. If I made up my mind, I'd find a way to do it. You can do it. And it's not just luck. You do need luck. And there is disappointment in life, for sure. And some of the things you want really badly don't happen. But bloody hell, that changed the way I thought about the world that night. There you go. That's a really special memory for me.
That's very nice. And I was going to say to you, actually, that I imagine producing a show where everything comes together is not always an easy task.
No.
But how do you know when you've created that perfect episode? Well, I think you've just answered that question.
Look, a big show like that, I will say this, a big show like that, you get, and you're doing a lump of episodes, like, 26 or 32, which means you're going to shoot for most of the year. And it will be uneven because you've got an assembly line going at hand. Each script written by so-and-so and, blah, 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 blah. And you've got to hit all these dates. And it got a pattern after a while. And you knew that in any, say, stretch of 26 episodes, there'd be about 10 crackers, like really, really good ones. And in the 10, there'd be 2 sublime pieces of work. And then there'd be another 8 to 10, which were pretty bloody good, and you were pretty proud of, and, everyone's skill polished beautifully. And then there'd be 3 that were good, but they weren't what you wanted. They just didn't make it. And there'd be 3, possibly, that no matter what you did, you were going to hope that everybody was out that night. And it's no one's fault because it's a group activity. It either accumulates in something glorious or it can accumulate in something which, no matter how much skill is applied to it, just doesn't do that thing. Just doesn't go bang. So, you learn those things and no one can teach you that until you do it. And it's like writing, every bloody book. I just finished another book. I have a real love-hate relationship with writing. And this one that I'm I'm finished now. I just finished the copy edit. And it's called Wild Wood now. It nearly killed me. I lost faith in myself so many times writing this book because and this seems also part of the process. Each book teaches you something different. But I have learned that the thing that frightens you the most is probably the thing you should do. I wish it wasn't so, but I think that's what it is.
The adrenaline's good.
For me it is, but I'm not a very balanced person. I mean, people say it's necessary to acquire balance in your life, and I certainly strive for that. But my modus operandi, I think, is to be an obsessive and to go like an exocet after something. I've kind of got 2 speeds, stop and go.
Right.
So balance is an elusive thing for me.
Right.
Some people are far more balanced than I.
Okay.
To say. It was 8 seasons, and we shot between 2001, the beginning of 2001, and, a good slab of 2008. Something like McLeod's, which does have a moral core, I think it was about big and simple virtues to do with loyalty and optimism and strength and resilience and the female side of the story on the land. That was all big stuff. I would, at various junctures in the series, we would have all loved the story to have gone in different directions. But various cast members had had enough and needed to move on. So I think I was satisfied by the end. I was sad that Claire left, the character played by Lisa Chappell. But there were good reasons why she wanted to go, because we had a lot of travel in the rest of that story. It would have gone on and on and on. However, Simone coming in and giving us 5 years of her life, she created an indelible character in Stevie. And I was pretty happy with all of that. If I have one regret, I didn't want to call it McLeod's Daughters. I wanted to call it Drover's Girls. And I think if we had, we would have still been running. We were hampered by that name. It was a compromised name because Kerry Packer didn't like Drover's Girls. And it was a compromised name. But having daughters in the title meant that if you lost the daughters, you had to be very clever with the story.
Yeah, I imagine it would make it a bit difficult, yes.
Oh, it was, because people are human, they've got lives, so they want to do different things.
Absolutely. So how many awards did McLeod's pick up over its
run?
Look,
it did really well. The biggest award that we got in a popular sense was in, I've got to think about it, 2003, or it might be 2004, can't remember. We got most popular Australian show against all comers.
Wow.
And that was against some huge heavy hitters, the first few years of big shiny floor shows. And that was amazing. And we got like the New York Film and Television Festival. We went over and did a special screening over there, which was in the land of Seinfeld as it, was on air.
Wow.
That was bizarre. We got nominated for this, that, and the other thing. The number of Logies we won was stunning. And if you add them all up, there were the actor awards, and then there were the awards for the show, and then there was a gold Logie for Lisa and the Silver Award for Bridie and, all that. So I can't remember, but it was all told something like 15 or 17 Logies,
Wow.
if you add them all up.
That's very impressive.
Oh, of course it was. Just don't believe it.
No, as I said, very impressive. I'd love to win one award, let alone that many awards. Well done. What was it like working?
At the same time, it was amazing because High Five was firing too.
Yes.
And we won a bunch of Logies for High Five. And just, look, the songs from the Clouds and also for High Five, they all won awards, and the albums from the Clouds did huge business.
Yes.
Huge business.
Yes.
Anyway.
I'm going to talk to you when we talk about High Five. I'm actually going to talk to you about the merchandise side of things. So, what was it like working with the cast and crew? Is there any particular diva stories that you can let us in on?
I ain't gonna share diva
I
stories.
Didn't think so.
That's not fair.
I had to ask though.
No, the thing is, we were asking a lot.
Yes.
Our cast were, we shot on location every single one of those episodes, all weathers, freezing heat. In the first few series, every dollar was counted 3 times because the budgets were so tight. Now, the cast went through it because it wasn't Hollywood treatment, and so did the crew, by the way, because we just asked a lot of everybody. However, I will say this, and I think this is really true, the McLeod set was always very close. The people were close. They felt like family to one another. And I think when we finished there, we had the best wrap party in a paddock, and we bussed in just about everybody we could think of who'd worked on the show, and we had an amazing wrap party. It was amazing. It was amazing. In a paddock in front of the homestead.
It does.
It's bloody glorious.
It does sound like it was a big family atmosphere. Who was your favourite character? Do you have a favourite?
God,
not
if I
actor.
said that, I'd get murdered.
Not actor. Okay, all right. Who was your favourite character to write for? Can you answer that one? The one that really, got you crying and gave you goosebumps and.
Oh God, look, I will say this honestly. They all shone.
Right.
So there were episodes which were special to individual characters on that screen, and they were indelible bits of TV. I think Claire's death and the aftermath of that, and Stevie turning up, all of those sorts of things, they were a pretty special run of episodes. And they were, by the time, it was 3 series in by the time Lisa decided she wanted to go on, and we had to give her an heroic death, but we did not believe that Claire McLeod would leave Drover's Run. So we took that decision, which was huge at the time, and you would have thought I'd personally murdered her from the emails I got. However, if you think of contemporary things like Game of Thrones, he moves his story forward by killing people. Because he kills someone and then busts the story open and gives you all sorts of story possibilities to pursue. It's a big, big device that he uses. So that run of episodes. We did a bunch of episodes about, there were some lovely wedding episodes. There were gorgeous ones. There were ensemble pieces. I thought when very early, Brick's disappearance and death, the work that Jessica did around that was just heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. Jessica Napier. So what happens on a long-running series is the writers work out how to write for a particular actor's strength.
Right.
And when it all comes together, you get indelible TV.
Yes, you do.
So it's not an answer. It's not an easy answer. It's not cut and dry.
Okay. All right. Well, here's another tricky one for you. What makes a good drama?
Well,
And
okay.
You're the queen, so you should be able to give us all the
I don't
answers.
know. I mean, Charles Dickens said something 200 years, 150 years ago.
Right.
He said, make them laugh, make them wait, make them laugh, make them cry,
Yes.
make them wait, and I would add, make them gasp.
Yes.
Make them laugh, make them cry, make them wait, make them gasp. Now he was a master of that. He was also a master of writing to what we would call a cliffhanger to bring the audience back. You know, at the end of a chapter,
Yes.
even the end of a book. And there were great 19th century storytellers who inform us all to this day. So I reckon those are pretty good rules. Somebody else said drama is conflict.
Right.
And I reckon yes. But I also think drama is emotion. And emotion is not always conflict.
No, I like that. I haven't heard them make them wait before, but yes, it's very, very true when you
Oh, yeah.
when you say that.
Hold it off, hold it off, hold it off.
Absolutely. Why do you think Aussies embrace, you know, dramas so much, especially a good Aussie drama? Why do you think we just fall in love with them?
Well, we like to see ourselves. You know, these are tough times for television drama right around the world. Audiences are dropping
Yes.
as people have so many more forms of storytelling available to them, you know, a click away. So we can see the best the world offers. So when an Australian drama really does succeed, then that's a real credit to the storytellers working on that show. But why wouldn't you like to see yourself? Why wouldn't you just see your country, hear your accent, see the city you live in? I don't think that's brain surgery. I think that's kind of normal.
Hmm. All right. What do you think of the reality shows on TV at the moment?
They're dramas.
Right.
You know, and in some cases they're scripted tightly as fiction, but the dialogue is improvised. But the form of those reality shows is all about drama and holding things off and surprising you, and shocking you and frightening you and making you fall in love. And it is a different, and the form, often being delivered once every day, harks back to serial drama, except they've got better frogs.
I like that. Better frogs.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Welcome back. You're listening to The Author's Shelf. I'm chatting this afternoon with author Posie Graeme Evans. Another of the award-winning shows that you co-created was with Helena Harris.
Yeah.
At the time it was created, there wasn't a show dedicated to young children that captured everything that High Five did. How was the High Five concept born?
Over a dining room table. And Helena and I had known one another for a long time. And she had taken Bananas in Pyjamas, the Enid Blyton story, and created a series around it, which, of course, as we know, is incredibly successful. And we decided that we would form a company called Kids Like Us to kind of play to our individual strengths. Now, as it turned out, High Five was just all-consuming and ran for a very long time. And not long after, 2 years after it got up, McLeod's finally got up, so it was impossible for me to do both. And Helena took production over. But really, it was just a simple idea. And at the time when we pitched it, which was 98 or 97, 98, the Spice Girls were enormous. So we pitched it as Spice Girls Do Education. And we put together a band. But we added 2 blokes because we wanted that show to be entertaining to little boys as well as little girls, and we wanted little boys to be able to get up and dance without feeling self-conscious and sing. And it was very carefully designed because it had incredibly strong educational underpinnings, and each of the 7 segments addressed a very contemporary summation of how children learn by talking about 7 different kinds of intelligence.
Right.
And so kids, whoever you were, we were writing for the bright 5-year-old, could watch that show and find something in it that talked to them. And music is the great communicator.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
you know, it was a lovely show. It was a lovely show. And the other thing is that everybody who wrote for the show when it all rolled had children in the age group. Sort of, if you said sort of 2 to 7. About 7, it kind of ran out of legs because you get cool when you're 7.
Yes.
But the sort of 3, 4, 5, and even the babies, just adored it.
Well, the colours and the music, I mean, that just captures.
And the passion.
Absolutely. Well, as I said before, I was going to talk to you about the merchandise. Now, with High Five, obviously came a whole merchandise train. I mean, there was clothes, books, toys. How important?
It was absolutely, it broke on us like a wave, because the thing is, there's a lot of government regulation around what you can show to children of what is called the P age group,
right.
which is 5 and younger,
Yes.
and the C age group, which is 2 bands of people between sort of 5, 6 and about 7, 8, 9, and later C, which is up to and including 13, 14-year-olds. And it's very, very heavily regulated. And one of the things on the commercial channels is that you may not advertise on air to children in the P age group. You know, there are no ads.
Yes.
None.
Okay.
And yet, we were inundated by people wanting to license products into the show. And at the very early, and not into the show, but as a corollary, never advertised on the show, but, High Five branded merchandise. And, God, we got embraced and run over and overwhelmed. And it was fairly amazing. I mean, we weren't stupid because, Helena had lived through the whole bananas in bananas, phenomenon, but I hadn't. I knew nothing about merchandising. And it was, talk about a quick learning curve.
Well, I remember my son very young when High Five first came out, and he was one of the little High Five groupies, although he'll be cringing if he listens to me say that now that he's 16.
Of course not.
But there was High Five merchandise absolutely everywhere.
I know.
Do you think that it helps in securing a wider audience? I mean, all the little girls dressing up like Charlie and Kathleen and Kelly. There, that's going back.
Answer probably yes. But what we did our best was to quality control. Like, there were things like food people wanted to pitch to us. And we were very concerned that anything that had a High Five brand on it was not loaded with sugar, for instance, or salt.
Yes.
And I can remember there were really intense discussions about stuff like that. Really intense. And we wanted people to understand that we felt that for High Five, we could not be associated with products that parents would not approve of for their children. It seemed like a no-brainer to us. So, it was a very interesting baptism into a whole other area.
Must have been. Now, High Five was seen in more than 80 countries worldwide, and during your time won a string of awards. In 2008, you decided to move on from the show. What fueled that decision?
Oh, look, we pitched it in 98. It was the year of immense change in my life because McLeod's had finished. I was burnt out and exhausted. And I was writing a book. I've been given a new contract by the publishers. And two things happened. We were offered a joint venture with a huge and enormous production company, which shall be nameless, and we sort of did that, and it was just to develop new drama, and that worked well. But I kind of worked out I just needed to run away. And also, at that time, because I've been doing television for so long, God, in every way, shape and form, the network offered to buy us out. By Helena's interest out and our interest out. And we thought about it, and it was quite extraordinary, and we basically said yes.
Any regrets?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. Not that I didn't love High Five, 10 years is a long time.
Very much. And as you said, you were feeling burnt out, and it just all fell into place at the right time.
It was, I don't know. I believe in fate. I wish I didn't. But there you go.
All right. Now, High Five, of course, is not your only venture into children's TV. In 1990, together with your husband, Andrew Blaxland, you co-founded the production company Millennium Pictures.
We did.
And under this company, you produced the AFI-nominated children's series, The Miraculous Mellops, from 1991 to 1992 with Dave Gibson.
God, why don't we go back to dinosaurs?
This is your life, Posie.
God.
And you co-produced with Dave Gibson Mirror Mirror in the mid-90s, which was also nominated for the Best Children's Drama in both Australia and New Zealand.
absolutely. And we won in New Zealand.
Well
Yep.
done. And I haven't finished yet. And in 1997, you produced Doom Runners starring Tim Curry.
I did.
Tell us about that one.
Oh, that was fun. It was a gigantic telly movie for Showtime and Nickelodeon, and we shot it in Sydney. It reamed my brain out. It was sort of a tween teenage kind of thing. We shot on 35mm film because there was the notion it might be a movie, not just a telly movie, and it was the notion that it would be a pilot for a series. Now, the pilot never kind of landed, but the experience, I mean, what I'm saying is it was shown, but it never went into a series. But I had the whole experience of being flown to Hollywood, seeing that movie we'd made go up in I think it was I'm trying to think of which lot it was. But anyway, it was one of the big movie lots. Might have been Sony, can't remember. Anyway, seeing it go up in an Art Deco theatre with a who's who in that audience, including Tim Curry, being driven around all the kind of canyons of Hollywood in a stretch limo all by myself, going and doing meetings with people. It was hilarious. And it was a wonderful experience. Gorgeous experience. Mad. And Tim Curry's a gentleman. And he is funny and clever. And he is a mad gardener. And he supports his gardening habit by doing animations and voiceovers between jobs.
Okay.
And he was just a darling.
And
so there you go.
And you had a ball.
Who wouldn't?
All right.
It was great.
What do you love most about being a writer?
Well, I've found a talent for solitude in myself. Film and television is a group activity. You're always towing huge numbers of people with you, behind you, beside you, or trying to push them forward or whatever. And when you're a writer, it's just you and the page. And that's it. That's kind of beguiling and frightening and insecure making, you name it, add the adjective. It was the right thing to do, to see if I could do it, see if I could write full time. And I've done it for a few years now, but now I'm back into TV and writing at the same time.
All right, what's the best piece of advice that you've been given?
Okay. Have the guts to follow the little voice inside that says this way, not that way.
Okay.
And that's really hard sometimes. And sometimes you can't hear it. Be brave. Do the thing that frightens you. I have to tell myself this all the time because I want to run and hide. Be brave.
Okay. Very good advice there. Thank you for that. Now, for someone who's trying to break into publishing or writing for TV, what would you tell them?
Well, I think the rise of self-publishing is fascinating. And it's lots of people self-publish and are read by 2.5 people and one of them's their mum. So if you're going to self-publish, which you possibly can, you've got to find the audience. No one's quite cracked that yet. But it's on the way. And it's subverting all the normal paradigms, the kind of conventional ways the books have always been published. So again, be brave. Work with the best. If you're going to publish anything, it better be the best book that you can possibly write. Back yourself. Pay for a professional editor. Don't just get your friends to edit. Make sure that your work is of the highest standard. The other thing is, if you want a conventional publisher, then you can do worse than start with a blog and hone your skill and find an audience. It's not unusual these days for blogs to be converted to books. It's a hard road, but things get noticed according to social media following. So that's one way. I mean, there's plenty of conventional ways. The other thing that I would advise is wherever you live, there'll be a writer's centre in your state. Yes. And most writers' centres exist to help people professionally, educate them, and help them network, because writing is a solitary activity. So you can do worse than do the courses that are offered. Many of them are not very expensive. And again, it's an investment in yourself. And then the last thing I can think of is don't set yourself up to fail. Writing that first book is a long-term thing, and you can get lost in the doing of it. So set yourself realistic targets. If you can only write once a week, write once a week, but write consistently.
And don't go back over the first chapter obsessively until every word is perfect. You know, if you're going to write once a week, which is what I used to do, read what you've read the previous week, go through and clean it up, like correct it for spelling, and move on. Write chapter 2. So that in 6 months' time, if you're relatively diligent, you'll have a first draft.
Very good, thank you. All right, what's one word that sums you up? This is a hard one for everyone.
I think I'm an experiencer.
Okay, very good. All right, I like that one. Do you find it easy to write for children or adults?
I've written all my books for adults.
But
It's not to say that I won't write for kids. I've got 50 pages of a book that I really want to write, that I want to write for my grandson. I've got 3 grandsons from one part of my family, and then another grandson and a granddaughter from another part of my family. And for some reason, that 50 pages is stalled on me. It sits there. And I got a whole other name as a writer for kids.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, I made up a different name, but I won't tell you what it is.
That's all right. I wasn't going to ask.
But so at the moment, all the stories that come for me are for adults.
All right. Now, I could go on chatting to you forever, but sadly, we've come to the end. I know you gave us a little teaser that you're venturing back into TV. Can you tell us anything more about that, or you want to keep that one to yourself?
I can't tell you what it is.
Okay.
We're doing it in New Zealand with the Gibson Group. And it's a series for adults.
Okay.
I think it's going to be I hope it'll be very funny, and I hope it'll be driven by fashion and music, and it's not McLeod.
And even though it's being done in New Zealand, is it a project for New Zealand TV, or?
It's absolutely a project for New Zealand TV,
right.
Completely and utterly. But I think it might travel.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Posie Graeme Evans, thank you very much for being so generous with your time and chatting with us on our birthday show.
Lovely. Oh, I'm honoured.
All
I
right.
really am, Georgie. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi. It's Posie Graeme Evans, and you're